Karlie, welcome to the podcast. Good to have you today.
Thank you. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you. This is the product y'all have is obviously not in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Here I do have a son, but didn't have to deal with any of that as when he was younger.
And
So
nursing and breastfeeding for
nursing,
you,
yes,
huh?
but what's always intriguing to me about the Just Get Started podcast and the guests I have is everyone's story is so unique, different ways they get into stuff. So, like I said, when this came across, I was like, oh, this is really interesting because y'all are in the early stages of this, right? So I'm
Yeah.
really curious for you to be able to share a lot of those insights and kind of the early moments. So if we can start maybe why don't, just for everyone listening in, the brand and then the product line, what y'all are doing.
Sure. Yeah. So we started a company called Jen&Keri. My partner's name is Jess. My name is Karlie. So we are neither Jen nor Keri. But actually, it's sort of funny how we picked that name was that those are the names that people notoriously call us wrong. And so people are always calling my partner Jess, Jen, always calling me Keri. So we're like, oh, these are like our alter egos, like our cool mom friends. They know all the deets, that sort of thing. So we started the company shortly after I had my first son. So he's almost 4 years old now. And basically it was born because we were at my house. She'd come over to meet the baby. We were hanging out and I was just getting back into working out. And I'm a sports chiropractor. I treat mostly pregnant and postpartum women. I have like a lot of kind of rehabilitation plans, stuff like that around that. So I'm really into that world, right? And I was sort of lamenting to her, like, hey, I want to get back in the gym. I'm so excited. I've been doing all this rehab. I'm ready to like go work out, be part of a class, that thing. And I was like, honestly, these nursing sports bras are horrible. So like, if you're not familiar, they usually have these big old clips on them, and I was like, it's gonna like pop off, I'm gonna like do a power clean, it's gonna fly open, or I'm gonna run and like, who knows what's gonna happen. And so my friend Jess was like, there's gotta be a better one. So we're like looking online and couldn't really find one. We found, there's some like Velcro, there's some zippers, there's like some alternatives, but there's nothing that just looks like a regular bra and that I could still like work out, do, high impact activity, and then also like feed my baby, without like having to like change my bra and like do this whole thing. So that was like kind of how our journey started, actually, was just not being able to find what I was looking for. And then so I was like, well, I kind of have this idea of how like what it should be like. And so we, eventually we started like cutting up bras and like, rudimentarily like sewing, these like kind of things together and like, okay, would this work? Would that work? And then so we came up with obviously we went through many iterations, but we came up with the bra we have now, which basically looks just like a regular sports bra. But it pulls up from the bottom and then kind of pulls down. There's an inner layer. And so like, if you saw it, you just think like, oh, some girl in a sports bra, but then for the mom who's using it, it's great because we don't have to like get home, change our bra. You can also pump in it. And so it's like, was just trying to simplify this like really stressful brand new time for new moms and like give them something to make their life a little bit easier. There's so much stuff that like makes it easier for the baby, but like to make something easy for the mom, focus on her, empower her to get back to the activities she loves. That's kind of like, that was where our whole thing kind of started.
Well, and that was kind of my curiosity around. It's one thing to just maybe you create it for yourself. Hey, you make a couple things but the fact of especially being a chiropractor, like you had a business, right? You had your own
Yeah.
for many years. Like it's like, why jump and do this? That's always the why. Why did you like? Did you reach out to other moms and like find like this was a big issue, or was this is more like, you know what? If I have the issue, I imagine others will as well, and to step forward.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Like I said, just because I'm in that world so much, I have a big community of moms already. So I already kind of knew that it was an issue. Especially like the pumping part, because pumping moms, basically where they're not breastfeeding their babies, but they're using the pump, right, to extract the milk, which they then give their baby in a bottle. The bras that you use that for are like really cumbersome. Like it's like you're changing your bra, you know, like 8 times a day. And so like I sort of already knew that was an issue too. So it was a little bit of both, reaching out and then also just being like, man, I cannot be the only one, you know? But yeah, it's a totally different avenue. Both Jess and I have been in either fitness or health or wellness for our whole careers. But we've been athletes. We were both college athletes. And so we kind of like, you know, sort of like, we felt that side of it, like, okay, we want to give other athletic moms like something that they can use for this new sort of transitional phase of their lives. So, but we had no background in production, or she has a background in marketing. She does marketing. So we had that at least. And, but no, you know, like supply chain stuff, like we didn't know any of it. So,
well, yeah. Could you share a little bit, like how, so like the first, would you call it a mold or first iterations? Yeah. I don't know what you call it, I guess, but like the first product, like, what did you create it out of? What material? Where'd you get the material?
Yeah, so we actually did we did an online course, and this is one of the things I tell people who have these ideas, you know, is there's so many material or so many resources online now. We did a course called Start and Scale. I'm not sure if you've heard of that before, but I'm sure there's other courses like it, but it's basically just teaching you how to start from an idea and what you're going to need along the way. So, you know, how to find a manufacturer, what that even looks like, we needed a designer to help us, you know, actually create the first iteration of the product. Right. And so it was like, we had to start from the very beginning. So we did that course together, my partner, Jess and I, and we learned a lot through that. So we found a designer in California, and then she actually sort of walked us through like a lot of those pieces and taught us as we were going, you know, and we were very like open and vulnerable. Like, we don't know what we're doing. We're relying on you. Like, please give us feedback, you know, because we didn't want to like go in thinking we knew what we were doing and not learn, right? You have to like have a very humble mindset in that phase, I think, for us anyways, because we really didn't know what we were doing. And we've learned a lot, but we're still learning, you know, we're still very new. So
yeah, well, again, I mean, you have to almost be open to being a beginner learner because you don't know anything, right?
Yeah, because you are, right? You're just like totally like, you know, we both have so much knowledge in our like kind of fields. And then we're like, let's go over into this field and just like start over and try again, you know, but it's been really fun. And we've been able to use some of the stuff from our other careers, our previous, you know, stuff that we've been doing. But yeah, there's been a lot of learning too.
So as you talk about like the design phase, like how many iterations did you end up doing before you got to what final?
Oh, so many, because for us, it was super important. Like we wanted it to be really compressive, but not too compressive, and like really soft, but then it has to be compressive. So there's like all these different kind of, you know, features that we kind of went back and forth, and we weren't in the same place. Also, we our manufacturing facilities in Mexico. So it's like we were working with our designer in California, and then she would send stuff to Mexico. And, you know, it's just like, there's just like a lot of moving parts. Right. So I don't know how many, at least like 8 or 9, because we had some ideas. So we had to test a bunch of stuff out. Right. Like there was one that had like this sort of like tiny little zipper on the side that you couldn't see. It was like one of those like invisible zippers, like on a woman's dress. So we had like that. We had like a bunch of different ideas. And so we were like trying to figure out what would actually work best. And luckily I was nursing. And so we'd like get the bra, and then I would try it, and, you know, I'd work out in it and then try to nurse my son. And so, yeah, there was a lot. We had some pretty bad ideas before we settled on our final one, which we have now, which actually is closer to what we thought about in the beginning, but we wanted to like make sure that we were not missing anything, something that could be better, you know.
Is the design you have now, is that like, do you have a patent on? Is that a unique design, or that closing?
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because we've worked with some patent attorneys. The hard thing is that it's so hard to patent clothing, you know? And so there are like, we have some design patents that we're kind of toying around with, but yeah, that's one of the questions we get a lot. Like, have we patented it? And so we're like sort of in the phase of trying to figure out that piece of it.
Yeah. Well, because that would be, and I don't know, maybe I started watching Shark Tank so many years.
Yeah, right.
Like, oh, what, is there a licensing play there if you have the patent? I don't know,
Yeah, we did. That was one of the first things we did because, of course, everyone's like, oh, you need to, get a patent on this. And we're like, yeah, we're like sort of trying, but so we're trying to figure that piece out right now and like go back to the drawing board on that and see what we're going to do.
So let's take day one, the idea you had to today. What's the timeline? Like how many, is it a couple of years now or?
Yeah. So let's see. My older son, I have two boys. My older son is going to be 4 at the end of August. So he was probably like 6 months old. So I would say, so it's like probably 3.5 years or so from then till now. Had a whole nother kid in between that. So.
Well, the reason I asked that is how long did it take? Because this is always, everyone thinks like it happens overnight.
Right.
Like how long did it take from like that initial conversation with Jess and actually maybe, I don't know, maybe shipping a product, like we can go that route, like to actually feel like, okay, this business is viable.
Yeah. Okay. So until the business was viable, I would say it was at least 1.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that shipping product, like you're selling online or is that a Kickstarter or is that?
Yeah. So we're selling online. We are direct to consumer. We actually are doing a Kickstarter in August because our bra, people have really liked our bra, but we're a small company. And so people are always asking for new styles and new colors. And we're like, yes, we want to do it, so we're going to do it. We are launching a Kickstarter in August to do that. A couple of new colors, a new design, bra for sleeping in, because that's like another kind of pain point for new moms that they need something to sleep in, but like, you don't want to sleep in an uncomfortable bra, like all these things. So, so we were shipping, about 1.5 years. We had our first order, I think, of black. Our first one was black, high neck, high impact nursing pumping sports bras. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Everything just takes so much longer. I mean, I'm sure people say this over and over on your podcast, but everything takes so much longer and is so much more expensive, than you anticipate. And there's just like all these unknown costs in a business like this, from, running ads to like, just like fees for your website, for your email marketing. They're just like, and sometimes they're small fees, right? But they just add up to where you're like, man, we sold a lot of bras last month. Like, where'd all that money go?
Yeah.
So,
well, and one of the things I was curious where, if you can get into this a little bit, is like when you started, did you all have a conversation about how much you were going to put in of your own money or getting a loan? Like how did you structure? Because you didn't know how much it was going to cost.
Right.
Technically, right?
Right. Yeah, we did. We sat down, we wrote out a contract. The way that we split up percentage of the company was based on who put in what amount of money and who was going to put in what amount of sweat equity, sort of thing. So we discussed that initially. We're also really good friends, and I think it's split on people saying like you should go into business with a really good friend or you shouldn't, right? For us, we knew that we're really good communicators. We've both been in partnerships in other businesses before. And because we're such good friends, we've been friends for 10 plus years. We've heard each other talk about those other relationships and those other partnerships. And so we know the pain points of what we've had with them. We know what our strengths are. And so for us, it felt like, okay, we can do this, and we're just going to be really open. We're not going to let anything fester. If we're having an issue, we're really going to make sure we talk about it right away and don't let it, get out of control. And another thing that we found was we try to always talk instead of text or email, like with each other, just because I think, you can read a text as super snarky or whatever, just like a lot gets lost.
Yeah. Do you structure like business meetings? Because obviously you have a friend, you still want to hang out as friends at times doing this, but do you have specific like structured, hey, we're talking about business at this time during the week or something like that? Or
we do, yeah. Yeah, we set aside time, and usually sometimes it's over Zoom, if we have other stuff going or if one of us is out of town, but usually we get together. We also just found that we work so much better together. So like when we're trying to be creative, we always get together, even if it's just on Zoom, because like if we're working on marketing stuff or branding or whatever, we just like our minds, we found like together is just so much better, so So we do set aside time. And then if we're just together as friends, like we can't help it. We also are like always talking about stuff, but we'll even make agendas, just to make sure we kind of stay on task, because since we are friends, we'll like veer off, right? If we're like, so we try to like stay on task as much as possible.
How did y'all decide to split up duties?
Yeah, that was actually easier for us, I think, than for most people, just because we have very unique strengths. So, she does pretty much all of our like website setup, because she does that stuff for other companies too. So she does like sort of our branding and that sort of thing. I do more of I'm sort of more the face of the company, I guess. Like I do our videos for TikTok and Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And then I also do like I still do our fulfillment. We don't have a fulfillment center, so I still do all of our fulfillment in my house. We just have a big old,
Oh, wow.
crazy, yeah, it's like sort of wild. And so I still do that. Hopefully that's going to get offloaded soon, but not quite yet. So yeah, because of where like sort of our strengths, we knew how to split stuff up. But if stuff comes up, we'll just try to talk about it, see who has time to do, if it's something new we haven't like had to address, then yeah.
Have you all kept your full-time job still?
Yeah.
So you're doing this on the side?
Yeah. So that's like a hard thing too, right? Is like we really go back and forth, because to really make this our full-time thing, at least for one of us, we'd have to take on an investor or, do a round of fundraising or whatever that looks like. And we really are sort of trying to bootstrap at this point, because we don't want to do that. We know we have a good product. We really enjoy the women that we're able to help, so we toy around with that, so that's one of the reasons we're doing the Kickstarter, is to, increase the brand, increase the product line, and then sort of bring a little money in to be able to do that, and then see what happens after that. We're not opposed to doing, fundraising or bringing on an investor, but it's like, that's a whole other ball game, right? And with us both still having other jobs, I have 2 kids at home, it's just like we've got a lot going on. So
yeah, and that was kind of where I wanted to go down, the structure, the scheduling, because it's like this new thing entered your life. And maybe you figured it out, maybe you haven't yet after a few years, I don't know. So that's why I'm asking, like, obviously spending time with your kids, spending time with your spouse, like how did those well, I guess even more where I'm leaning is like, how did the conversation with your husband work?
Yeah.
And hey, I'm going to do this. Okay. Yeah. What, like the support there and how those conversations, I know that's got to be yes, he's not part of the business probably.
Right. Yeah.
He is part of it because of the support and the conversations and what have you.
Yeah. I think I'm super fortunate. My husband is very supportive. When we had our first son, so it was like, we had a new baby at home. I was on maternity leave. He actually was writing a book. He is an author, but he's in finance, and he's been in finance his whole career. But he had this passion project of writing a book. So he was writing a book, and I was working on this bra and also putting together this online postpartum plan for women. So basically we would just like take care of the baby. Whenever the baby was napping, I was working on this stuff. As soon as the baby went to bed, we both were like, shoop, off to our separate like little rooms to work on stuff for a few hours. And we think back to that, we're like, what in the world? Like, what a weird time, of just like, I don't know what we were doing. It was real weird. And it's hard to even remember, because then we're both so tired because we had a brand new baby at home. We didn't know what we were doing. So maybe we were just delirious, and that's how we like made it through, just like living on.
Did you plan anything out, like vacations or date nights or anything like that, or just kind of said, hey, this is how it is right now, this is the season we're in, and just keep moving?
Yeah, I think that's what we did. Well, and then COVID hit, when my son was about 6 months old, then COVID hit. So we were like, well, I guess we can't go anywhere anyways. So, yeah, it was wild. I'm still seeing patients. I see patients about 2.5 days a week. And at that time I was still seeing patients all through COVID mostly. And then working, in those other days at home on some of this stuff. So Yeah, it's been like a really wild ride, but we obviously talked about some of the finances because we did invest some money in it, so we talked about that, like what can we make work? And yeah, we try to drag my husband in like more than he wants because he has such a financial background. We're like, hey, what about this? And he's very helpful, but he also then he wants to know all these facts and figures, and we're like, never mind. We don't want to we don't want to give you all that info right now. We just want your advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you could go back,
Yeah.
would you change any, like, obviously it happens how it happened, but like you go back now, you have some hindsight on it. What would you change? Maybe what would you do a little differently?
Yeah. I know that is, I think I would have, maybe not jumped quite so fast. I would have learned a little bit more about manufacturing and communicating with manufacturers and what production looks like and that sort of thing. Because we're still learning that. Unfortunately, we relied a little bit too heavily on our designer at first. She was like taking care of a lot of this stuff for us. And so we didn't like build that foundation, like right away of understanding some of that stuff. So still, even though we've got all this other knowledge, over the past 4-ish years that we've been learning, we like sometimes are like, wait, what is that? How do we do that again? Like how do we communicate with that person or get this thing in there? We skipped some steps almost because we let her do it for us. So that is something I would probably change. It's just making sure, it's like if you open a grocery store, right? You have to learn how to run the register. You have to learn how to like sweep the floors. You have to learn how to unlock the doors in the morning. So sometimes I feel like we let her do a little bit of those things for us. And we should have learned how to run the register right away. You know what I mean? So that I do tell people that, like, make sure, you know how to do the basic things in your business because you need to know them. Yeah.
Do you think you would, if you moved slower, you could potentially have moved faster, like at this point, just because you kind of knew things, you maybe you had more, we can always go down the rabbit hole of research, but you always
Right.
you can do too much. But is that what you're? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Just because we should have probably taken on some of that work and not let her do it, but she was, and we were like, this is great. It's very helpful. And it was super helpful. But I think if we would have taken a little bit more of the time to learn some of those things, then later we wouldn't have had to wait for her to talk to the factory owner in Mexico to talk back to her, to talk back, and like, there's just kind of this like ping pong of we're like, gosh, we sort of feel like the middleman sometimes in our own business. And so that's like, obviously not something you want to feel like. So, that is getting much better now, but I think you're right. If we would have laid that foundation at first and taken a little bit longer to learn it, then we could have like had that direct communication and felt super comfortable with it right away.
Do y'all talk about, because you mentioned, hey, everyone's giving you ideas. Hey, we need this new style or this, whatever. Because sometimes you want to do everything.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do that. Like it's, hey, what's our focus? Like how often do those conversations happen between you two?
Yeah, we started a couple years ago, setting aside actually a couple days. We say we're going to do it every quarter, but it does happen at least like every other quarter of where we just like, we've gone and like rented an Airbnb together. We've just like scheduled our nothing for those days and we just plan to work together on stuff. And so it's sort of almost like have an in-service. And we try to set some creative time aside, definitely at those meetings, to talk about, big, audacious, hairy goal. Like, what is it? Right. Like, we would love to have a full line. We'd love to have a whole, line of pants and shorts and stuff for pregnancy to make women feel empowered, like they can keep working out, keep doing whatever they want to do, keep being themselves, because that's what we're really trying to get to is like, you're still yourself. It's amazing being a nursing mom and being a mom. It's a blessing, but you're also yourself. And so we want to, we'd love to have things that help women do that, and so yeah, we set aside some time to talk about those big goals. And then we also set aside time to like be much more like specific and strategic, right? About sort of the day-to-day things too.
Yeah. Do you find like the new, let's say the new mom market is
Mhm.
underserved, like it's kind of stagnant in terms of the obviously not just, I guess you could the apparel, but maybe just other things that would go around that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's really focused on the baby. It's so focused on the baby, which of course, yes, we love our babies, but like there's studies out there, tons of studies showing that, a mom that works out, a mom that's happy is a better mom, the whole family thrives, all that sort of stuff. So we want to provide a quality product. And I think another thing that we saw that we were trying to sort of change a little bit is there's a lot of throwaway stuff, right? So you buy like these nursing bras that you're never going to use again, and because they're ugly and you're using them for a purpose, that's great. But you order them on Amazon, they're 25 bucks a pop, you order 5 and then you throw them away, right? Or you donate them or you give them to a friend or they go in the landfill. And so what we also wanted to do was create a product that like you could keep using. Like I'm not nursing anymore, but I wear our sports bra almost every day because, well, obviously because I love it, but also because like you can't tell, it just looks like a sports bra, right? And so also to have something that you don't feel like you just have to get rid of and like, be wasteful. And there's so much like wasting when you're a new mom, like 3 a.m. Amazon Prime nowing to your house, that we're like, what's something that can be like, more long term and not so wasteful.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned earlier, because I had before this interview, I was polling a few friends,
Yeah.
moms, and they're like, yeah, the clip you had mentioned, like the clip stuff, they're like, it's just very cumbersome was a word that
Yeah.
very, very awkward,
Yeah.
not
And
much.
it's just like broadcasting like, hello, I'm a nursing mom, like, which is
Yeah.
great. I'm proud. Like I said, I'm not definitely not poo-pooing it, but it's like, man, just let me like go to my HIIT class or my CrossFit class or whatever and work out and be one of the athletes in the class and feel like myself for an hour. And then I'll go home and nurse my kid. It won't be it'll be less stressful because I won't be ripping off a sweaty bra with a screaming baby. And
Mm.
yeah, we've had so many like especially older women whose kids are grown up, like, I wish I had this when I was nursing. I can't believe this is the first time this has come around. And we're like, yeah, we can't either.
Yeah.
So
Are there any, again, this is my naivety here, besides the bra for like nursing, is there any other things like new moms from like an apparel standpoint that would be unique to a mom versus just the average woman?
yeah, I think there's definitely things around like tummy control, like sort of re-engaging your core, pelvic floor, like stuff like that with activewear, right? We're launching actually pretty soon. We have nursing pads. So when you're nursing, often women will leak breast milk.
Okay.
And so the pads that are out there now in general are pretty horrible and you can like see them through your shirt and they're just like really ugly. So we have a new one that's like much softer. You can't see it. It stays in place. That was another just like, kind of pain point again that we saw that we're like, these things are horrible, but you need them. So what do you do? And so there's a lot of stuff, we have so many ideas around stuff like that, but everything takes time and money and all that. So
One step at a time. Now, so
exactly.
the Kickstarter that's coming up, is that a product on there, or was that an idea
Yeah. Yeah.
conception?
So it's going to be a product. It's going to be the bra that we have now, which is our high neck, high impact bra. That'll be available in a couple new colors. Then we're going to have a scoop neck version. So more of just like a regular looking sports bra again. That was one thing that people asked for a lot. And then a sleep bra, just like more of a kind of thin, just soft, nice bra. And then we're also going to have some packages for people that aren't nursing, right? So we have, actually, I have it right here because I was going to put it on. We have like we made some shirts that say every mom is an athlete, which is our logo.
Like that.
So, we have like packages for like friend of the mom with like a shaker bottle and a shirt and, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, the hope is that we just are able to get that going and then we can launch these new colors and this new design and all that stuff.
Yeah. You guys have a lot going on. That's good.
Yeah, which is like a whole nother thing, right? Kickstarter is like a whole other crazy world of, learning how to do that. So
not knowing what happens, we don't have the crystal ball, but if you and I talk in 2 years on this podcast, what would you be like hopeful vision for the company? Where would you like to be?
Yeah, I know we talk about this. And I think one of the things that I work on personally is like dreaming bigger. Like I think I often get kind of like really focused on the day to day and what needs to happen. And Jess is like, no, dream big. What if you could, anything you want? I'm like, my brain it can't like comprehend, but I think definitely we'd have a whole line of supportive sportswear for new moms, pregnant moms as well. And we have some great influencers that we work with now, who are just lovely and have been so supportive. But I think we would grow that whole thing. We'd grow our ambassador program. We have a pretty great affiliate or ambassador program. And while I would still like to be seeing patients a little bit, it would be more of a full-time gig, hopefully, for both Jess and I. And then, another thing that feels very important to us is employing other moms, having other moms like, as part of the team. So.
Okay, that's awesome. That's a good, hey, that's a big, hairy, audacious goal.
Yeah, I know. I've been practicing.
Okay, well, let's end on this. Take a second to think here. Someone's getting started.
Okay.
They want to start their bid. They're where you were 3 years ago. They have the idea, whatever the idea is.
Yeah.
What's the first step? What's the first thing they should do to get started? What are your thoughts? What would you share with them?
Yeah, I was thinking about this before we talked. I think a little bit like you and I were already saying, which is really use the resources that are available. Do your due diligence, do your research, find people that can coach you, help you. You don't have to spend a lot of money to learn a lot of this stuff, and I think if you can build that foundation and really get an understanding of what you're getting yourself into, I feel like everyone out there has good ideas, but not everyone creates them. And I think making sure that your idea is not just good, but something that you're passionate about and that you can see yourself talking about day in and day out. And, like I knew I was already in this new mom pregnancy space. Like I'll just talk about that stuff all day. So, but making sure, that it's something you're going to be passionate about, that you can learn the foundations of the other things that are connected to it, not just, what I know how to treat and work with pregnant women, but I had no understanding of, manufacturing, that kind of stuff. Laying that foundation, I think is also really important. And so just taking the time to do that and finding the resources and not jumping in blind. I don't feel like we jumped in blind. We did a lot of research, but we could have done more, and felt a little more stable,
Yeah, no, that's a good thought. And it kind of reminded me, I had Kevin Kelly on the podcast recently, and he mentioned something kind of to what you said around prototyping. Instead, you don't have to go all in, you don't have to say, I'm going to just invest hundreds of thousands of dollars tomorrow. Hey, let's design this. Let's kind of see, let's tweak it a little bit. Let's see how it works. You're kind of building it slow. Yeah. Because ultimately you might, we have that sunk cost fallacy. You might decide to say, you know what, this is not the best product for us, or this is not the business I want to do. But if you jump all at the beginning, you feel like you're pot committed, and now you just wasted a lot of time and money potentially and energy.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's sort of what we did, and sort of why we took it so slow. If we would have had hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe we would have jumped a little bit quicker, but we did prototype, like I said, let's try this, let's try that. And that's making one bra at a time, right? That's okay, make, or a couple bras at a time, make these, try them, see if it works. Nope, tweak this. No, the straps are too long. There's so many, especially in apparel, things are just have to be just right. And then you're finally over and over and over, after you do that, you finally get your product, and then you're making, however many units that you're making at a time. But yeah, it's slow, and I think it's good to be slow, but there's definitely, I think, spending what do you say, slow is fast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
slow
what is it?
What is it? Slow is smooth.
Smooth is
fast. Is
slow,
that right?
slow, smooth, and smooth is fast. I don't know.
Look it up. Google.
Yeah, look it up. You know what I mean.
Yeah.
You know what I mean.
Karlie, this is a lot of fun. Where can everyone say hello to you online? Where do you spend your time?
Yeah, we're all on Instagram and TikTok. So Jen&Keri, Jen and Keri is our Instagram and our TikTok. I try to do a lot of like stuff to help women who are newly postpartum. So a lot of like rehab advice, pelvic floor stuff, that kind of stuff. My own personal is Dr. Karlie, Karlie, same places. Between those two, you can pretty much find out anything you want to know about me and us.
Now, just to clarify, the business has the ampersand, right? As Jen and
It does, yeah, but it's written
social
out
is written out. Okay, just to be clear on that, because I know I don't think they allow the.
I don't think so either. Yeah, I think that's why we wrote it out. Yeah, it's Jen and then Keri. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Yep.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you for joining on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always fun to talk about this kind of stuff. I feel like, we don't get to like give advice like this very often or get to chat about it with other people who've been through it. So it's really fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Thank you, Karlie.
Thank you.